like to work with me, hey, I got no voice, so you can't keep talking. You usually can, I'll talk over you. But can someone get that door? Okay, can't talk in the back room, I got no voice.
Oh, no.
No side conversations. Very, very militant tonight. Very structured. All right, I'm gonna do the best I can. We're gonna go for an hour probably. I don't know if I'll make it much longer than that. I have no idea what's going on with this. What's that? Yeah, but that can't, it usually doesn't affect me like this. I don't even feel that bad. But we'll do the best I can, all right? So, family group, if you're here and you haven't been here before, this is meant to kind of educate, inform, answer questions, try to work through different ideas or different topics related to recovery, related to substance use, mental health, that kind of thing. No, all questions are good questions. And what I wanted to do tonight was just like kind of open it up and see if anybody had anything that they wanted to make sure we talked about, anything on your mind, any area that you feel like you're lost. I'm going to go through some of the standard stuff. I'll give us some education on, what is substance misuse, how do we define it. But does anybody else have anything happening that they want to make sure we talk about tonight?
You had some new slides on PERMA on Saturday, like the thing you said you're gonna do the case study with and all that. Is that appropriate?
So I did a positive psychology class on Saturday is what you're talking about, right?
But you have a bit
So I have
of-
some stress management stuff that I should be able to get us out before we're done tonight. I'll show that toward the end. Good deal. I have it right here. What else?
Is that stress management, how parents deal with it?
Yes. Well, actually, it's stress management for anyone. So one of the things we know that when it comes to dealing with this from a family member's end, there's sort of like two different areas you want to think about. One is, what do I need to be doing differently? Is there anything I can do differently? And then the second area is, how do I manage my stress, my anxiety, my worry while I'm trying to do this differently? Does that make sense? And the stress management stuff falls into the second category. So we'll do that. We'll definitely do that tonight. What else? Yes.
This is probably not an answerable question, but are there common themes or actions or behaviors that kind of indicate an addict is actually ready to kind of do what it takes to get on the right path?
So I think it's a really good question. I think it's a real legit question. The first thing is that, remember, all this is very individualized. It falls along a spectrum. People typically go through a process of change. We like to think it's an event. That's how we want it to be. That's how the world wants it to be. We do an intervention on you, we send you to rehab, you live happily ever after. It's not typically like that. It's a series of kind of like behaviors that start to go on, and the person essentially starts to think about the change. You could see outward signs based on what they're up to that might make you think that they're getting there. I don't know that there's a list of things, but it would be what the person is maybe starting to reconsider who they're spending time with. Maybe the person is re-engaging with somebody that they knew in recovery. Maybe they're going to some meetings. Maybe they're going back to a therapist. You can start to see these signs that a person is moving toward it. Some of the obvious stuff goes away, right? If they were stealing your property, the property stuff, is there. If they're drinking and driving or drinking and you obviously know they're under the influence, that starts to change. Does anyone else have any other thoughts or ideas on how you would know that your loved one is moving toward that change process? And I really just asked that question so I could stop talking. So, let's see something here. I want to see if I can find this slide, because talk about this real quick. Here we go. So let's talk about the question really kind of like from a realistic standpoint. There is no such thing as hitting bottom. It really doesn't exist. People get, people get recovery, people change behaviors based on a wide variety of reasons. Some people change behaviors on the way up. Some people go the whole way down and it doesn't matter, they troll along the bottom. You guys get that? The idea that a person has to hit bottom in order to get recovery is false. 100% false, okay? It's just a slogan. It was never meant to actually guide anybody's real approach to this issue. Let's stop there for a minute. Do you guys get that? Because I'm a trained observer of human behavior. And I'm seeing some people looking at me like this. So if you have a question about that, let me clarify it. Does anybody have a question about that?
I think it was hard to let go of that though, because so many people have told us that. You know, let her go and she'll hit rock bottom and then she'll seek recovery.
So the first part of that advice could be good. Let her go. Set boundaries. Start to take care of yourself. That's not the problem. The problem is, and then she'll hit rock bottom, and that's really the part that doesn't exist. But the first part is sound advice. You are probably doing things, if you're here, you may be doing things that might be supporting the behavior that you want to see change. I don't have an issue with that at all. I have an issue that it has anything to do at all with hitting bottom. I mean, there are plenty of people who have got recovery or changed in this area way before they wound up in jail, way before they wound up in the hospital with an overdose. Do you guys get that? Like, and there are many, many people who have hit bottom repeatedly. And we meet people at the hospital who just overdosed. If that's not bottom, I don't know what is. But they don't want to change. Do you guys get this? People change when, at a real fundamental level, psychologically, we all change when our values and our behaviors do not line up. Okay? And the internal tension around that becomes too much to handle. So if I value freedom and I go to jail, it's going to hit me hard. Right? Who would value freedom? Somebody who has a job, somebody who's living a life. Like, I would value freedom. But what if I'm kind of like living on the edge anyway? I'm living on the streets a little bit. Like, I go to jail, it doesn't have the same impact. You guys see that?
It might even be a relief.
Might even be a relief.
Do you have a roof over your head?
Very important to understand this. It's very different for different people. Oh, you know, you would think the fact that the kids were going to get taken away would be enough to get it going. Maybe not. Maybe not. It's different for everyone. You guys get that? And so you can't ever look at another person and assume that, hey, this is it. They're going to want to do this thing now. Have you guys ever known the right thing to do and done the wrong thing anyway? A lot of people aren't making eye contact. So that's what that's all about, right? There's a very odd kind of thing that happens in recovery rooms, and I would imagine also when I did mental health, where people think that it's just a matter of telling the person to do right. Just tell them not to do drugs. Never thought of that. That did not cross my mind at all. You know, it's so different than what has been told and what you guys have heard and maybe what you've seen in the media. Here's how people change. They go through a very identifiable process. This is stages of change, and it was identified by Carlo Di Clemente. He was a psychologist at the University of New Mexico, and he studied change, and what he found was people go through a process, a pretty predictable process. With any behavior change, this could be smoking cigarettes, this could be drug use, this could be having like anger management issues. The first is you don't care what anyone thinks, you don't think it's a problem, you're not going to do anything about it. That's called pre-contemplation. These tend to be a little bit younger folks. The substances involved tend to be a little bit less on the kind of like, they're probably leaning more toward marijuana or maybe alcohol. Hard drugs, it's hard to ignore that it's a problem. Do you guys get that? There's no such thing as recreational heroin use. There is such a thing as recreational alcohol use, and especially today, there is such a thing as recreational marijuana use. marijuana is being pushed as medical marijuana, and so what's happening is it's changed the vibe around that particular substance. And I can talk a little bit more about that. But the person doesn't think it's a big deal. Just doesn't think it's a problem. That's called pre-contemplation. It used to be called denial. Denial. Anybody remember that word? Most of the people that we talk to here at Favor fall into this category. Contemplation means, yeah, I have a problem, I get it, I shouldn't be drinking like this, I shouldn't be smoking this much weed, I shouldn't be eating these pills, but I don't know that I really want to change. I'm not sure I want to do anything about this yet. And it's literally thinking about it, contemplating it. This is where FAVOR Greenville gets it done. We're one of the few places in the country that you'll find that will work with people even though they don't want to quit. You guys hear that? We will work with people even if their stated goal is not abstinence. Because what we want to do is we want to help them figure it out. Talking out loud to somebody helps them figure out what they want to do. That's called contemplation. Preparation is, how do I get it done? Start reading some self-help books or talk to a counselor. Action is, I'm doing it. I'm getting it done. I'm no longer smoking weed. And maintenance is, after you do it for a while, it turns into a positive habit. It's not 21 days. I don't even know where that came from, like that whole 21 day thing. Anybody here ever hear that it was 21 days? It's about 66 days. When they have studied behavior change. It takes about 66 days for something to become a habit. That's how people change. Who asked the original question? Yeah, this is how people change. It's not about, so what you see is people kind of, and this is relapse, they fall back into the old behavior. So what you see is they bounce around and they think they have a problem, they don't think they have a problem. They tell you they think they have a problem and then they back off. Yes?
It occurs that the diagram's very similar to the cycles of grief that
Yeah.
we all know about. You don't go through it once, you go through it 2 or 3 times, and hopefully every time you go through it gets a little less
And
intense.
until it sticks. Now, again, one of the strategies we have, and one of the things, and I firmly believe this, is even if you're struggling with this issue and you don't think it's a problem, come in and learn about it, okay? Because if you come in and learn about it, then you're more likely to start making better decisions around this. The truth is, none of us know anything about what's going to happen in terms of who's going to become addicted or not. You guys get that? There's no way in the world that we can look at somebody and say, we don't know who's going to get a hold of something that they shouldn't get a hold of and have a terrible outcome. What we do know for sure, though, is that everyone can benefit about exploring their health and wellness. Would you guys agree with that?
Yeah.
Talking about your health and wellness, you owe it to yourself to find out what you're putting in your body and what it does to you. If we are able to think of it that way, then we get more people to come talk about it sooner. Or we even keep people talking about it, because as you start to talk about it, if you're talking to the right person, you become more likely to make better decisions for yourself. The problem is mom and dad can't do that. Husband can't do that, wife can't do that. Why? Why can't you guys do it? I mean, you can try, but it's going to be very hard because you're going to be emotionally involved. The key to this is you need to be able to roll with resistance and not respond to outrageous statements. Like, Rich, marijuana is not a drug, dude. It comes from the earth. Like a goat or an apple. That's a verbatim statement, man. So you need to be able to sit in a room and have somebody say that to you and not react. Tell me more about that. In the meantime, you're thinking, whoa, a goat. Like, what's up with the goat? Like, I get the apple part, it's a plant or whatever, you know what I mean? But so you have to roll with that resistance. Now, this can come up in any situation. I'm giving you an example with marijuana. It doesn't have to be marijuana. It could be heroin, it could be pills, it could be alcohol. The more you push on somebody to give you the answer they want, and they argue back with you, and they tell you how you're wrong, the more they believe it. And the slower these stages are going to be. However, what you can do is change your behavior tonight. Do you follow that? This is about the other person. You can change and start setting boundaries. And you can start saying, you're no longer allowed to live in my house, and I'm no longer paying for your cell phone, and I'm no longer, you follow me? Like this is what the person needs to go through. You guys can go right here now, tonight. Any other questions about the change process? Yes, ma'am.
How does that work with teenagers? Like if you can't tell a teenager, you can't no longer live in my house.
Yeah, you wouldn't start there. It wouldn't be that at all. I would never recommend that. I'm just saying that as a broad example. With teenagers, you would try to get into other types of consequences, other types of behaviors. You would start to, the problem or the issue with teens, you know, remember, like the adolescent brain works where it's very, very natural to push back. Okay, so the deal is, I don't want to be told what to do. That is a very, very natural process. That's how, like, from an evolutionary point of view, that got us out of the caves. It got people out there taking risks. So there's going to be that pushback, like, you don't know, mom, that kind of thing. And then the second thing is, depending on what the substance is, teenagers, you know, might be able to look at you and say with complete legitimacy, everyone's doing it, it's no big deal. You want to avoid arguing about that. Do you follow me? And it's almost like, how can you get your teen the facts on these issues? That's what you want. You guys get that? Especially with teenagers and young adults. Here are the facts, man. So I did a adolescent drug and alcohol rehab in Pennsylvania. I ran one, and we would have, everyone was smoking weed. They were smoking the hippie lettuce like it was no tomorrow. And so we would always be debating about it, right? And we would try to give facts, but when you give facts, you always have to just say, can I just tell you this, and you just think about it, please don't respond. You guys get that? Because if the person responds, then you're gonna, that's not what you want. You don't want to debate. You want to just give facts. Like for dudes, make sure they know that smoking marijuana causes testicular cancer, and you will grow man boobs. Seriously. I have study after study that says fatty deposits. And I gotta tell you, that caught their attention. That was the only thing. The other stuff around amotivational syndrome, which is what used to be called being burned out, that's been demonstrated to be true as well. They didn't care about that as much though. Do you get that? Like, it's just delivering it in a way. And it's almost like you have to say, can I just give you this? And like, well, this will take 2 minutes. I don't really want to discuss it. The discussing it part will become the problem. You guys get that? Because the discussing it part will become about them defending their position. And that's really not what you want. When a person defends their position out loud to someone else, they believe it more. So I don't know how you handle that exactly, but you have to dance with that one a little bit. Very hard. Yes?
What we did kind of the opposite was, we almost offered her a reward if she would come to a meeting. Like, I would take her out to lunch after a meeting, and their lifestyle was, you know, she was a meeting, so that was a big thing.
So you can get creative with something like that. Absolutely.
And
I don't know if you guys could hear that.
sometimes she came to the meeting live, but she
Yeah.
came and she listened.
Yeah, and I was just being talked about in an earlier meeting I was at where someone got paid to come in. I don't know exactly what the strategy is to get them to come in. I'm going to go through some options. You have to go through your individual situation to start saying, like, what leverage do we have? What other questions about the stages of change or questions about that process? Hitting bottom. All right, so let's see.
I do have a question.
Yes.
What if you're dealing with someone and you're dealing with an adult who is very strong-willed and is only willing to go so far, so in treatment? I'll go to detox, but I'm not going to a 20-day, I'm not going to IOP, I'll go to detox, and then I'll deal with it.
Yeah. So we would always say that you want to sell the car for 50 grand, but you'll take 25. Okay? So the idea is there's an ideal treatment plan for all of us. In any given medical situation, would you guys agree? There's an ideal treatment plan. So if I'm a diabetic, the ideal treatment plan is what? Insulin and change your diet, right? But many people just do insulin. Do you follow me? So you're gonna say like, here's the ideal thing, but we still want you to do this,
Okay.
which is better than disengaging altogether. Do you guys get that?
Mm-hmm.
It's extremely important. This is a disorder. This is it's called substance use disorder that falls on a spectrum from literally mild to severe. And it needs to be treated as such. It needs to be handled as such. And we would never say to a diabetic, you know, you're either getting on your insulin and changing your diet and eating right and exercising, or we're not helping you at all.
Mm-hmm.
You guys, that's never how we would approach it. And so we want to figure out our version of that, whatever it is. Yes.
So we're dealing with a 38-year-old son who recently found out he's doing crystal meth, had no idea. He doesn't look like it. He says it's been, 4 to 6 years? 6 years. You can't look at him and tell until he recently started losing things, his home and things, and he went ballistic with us. He was like the Hulk.
Yeah.
And, you know, and we have both completely said, we're not gonna watch you do this.
So you've kind of set that already.
Yes, we have.
Yeah.
We have no contact whatsoever.
Well, we're divorced. He moved in with me. Had to put him out. He was gone 3 days, came back. But he is never, we're best friends. He has never spoken badly to me. So I let him back in, laid in the bed for 7 days, still doing it. I know he was. And
But how do we get to a point to
number
even
one,
offer?
we didn't even know. So we're new to even knowing this from about 3-4 weeks ago of a grown man, and you know.
So the first thing
We
you
don't
do,
know what
and
to do.
yeah, so let's go to the what to do sheet and go through it.
Can I take that home?
Yes, we
Yes.
probably can get this. Let's see here.
I know there's a lot of people for it, if you've been in your shoes.
All right, let's talk through this real quick. Now, this is literally, the details aren't, I'm not gonna tell you the details of what you should do. But in terms of what anyone can do in these circumstances, why is that not coming on? Here we go. Okay. A little hard to see, but as far as what anyone can do in these circumstances, you just found out what's going on. The very first option you have is you can do nothing new. You don't have to do anything right now, okay? It's not the recommended option, but the truth is you can literally just monitor the situation and continue to learn more about it. The pros associated with that, the pluses are what? You don't have to like go confront the person. You don't have to do anything different. You can just see what's gonna happen. The cons are what? It could get a hell of a lot worse. It could be worse than you even think. It's inaction. But it is an option, and we support you even if that's your choice.
But you also can take the time at this point to educate yourself.
I'm going through all this. Okay, stop that. All right. That's all right. Okay, so you got that part? That's one option. The second part is, and we would recommend you keep learning about this. The second part is you can stay connected to them. You don't have to disconnect or do anything other than start to set boundaries any way you can. Now it sounds like you guys have already said you can't live at our house.
No, he disconnected completely from
With
us
us.
about 2 weeks ago
So-
because I thought he was gonna strike at me, and some of the things he said to me, you don't
You
wanna
kicked me
hear.
out, how could a parent
Right.
do
So
that?
what you would do is you would say to each other, do we let him back in when he comes back? Because he will come back.
He's made no attempt, but
Well,
I'm
I mean,
wondering that.
he will come back. He will come back. And then the recommendation would be, that's whenever you two are together on the same page. You say, no, you can't come back here, but we will help get you to X, Y, Z, which would be a recovery program or whatever that might look like. And we can help you with that. There's a number you can call 24 hours a day to get the direction on that. So that's an option too. You already kind of have that boundary going. It would be you guys talking about whether or not you want to follow through on that when they come back. You guys all get that. You want to be on the same page since he's already gone. You literally want to be like, what do we do when he shows back up? Because that's your moment. And I'm not telling you what to do. I'm only telling you, like, here are the recommendations. The recommendations would be that to not let them keep coming back in and back out. Because why? That sets up this revolving door situation that can destroy you, can wear you out.
The reason I let him back in, we know nothing about crystal meth. Absolutely nothing other than what we've learned in the last couple of weeks or so. But when he came back, he gave me everything, and it was, for me, it was a lot of stuff. It was a bag of crystals, some powder, a mirror with the things I've never seen. I flushed all that. He told me to give him 5 days, and he would be completely clean off of that. Not knowing,
Well, listen.
I trusted that.
Yeah, so here's the thing though, don't beat yourself up about that, and don't think about what you've done. Think about where you go forward, and everybody in the room should do that. It's not about doing it right or wrong. Any one of us would make the same decision. It's about what do we want to do going forward. Do you guys get that? I think that's exceedingly important. What do we want to do going forward? And that would be how we want to handle it the next time he comes in and turns his stuff over. And you have to make that decision. We can't tell you what to do with that. You have to make that decision yourself. But does everyone get that? That's the most important part. Being on the same page, being clear about what it's going to be. Being honest with yourself on how it's likely to turn out. As honest as possible. So then in this situation, that would be kind of like the next step, guys. If the person's at your house, because I don't know what everyone else's situation is like, if the person's at your house and they're sort of like crushing it or doing whatever they're doing, you may have to have a different type of conversation where it's about you have to leave. If they've already left, then it's about do we let them back in? If it's at the beginning of all this and the person isn't even reached that severe of a level, because we got to remember that like this starts somewhere. You don't have to kick anybody out. Do you get that? I'm not saying you have to kick anybody out. I'm just using that as an example. No matter what the boundary is, you have to be on the same page with your significant other and whoever else is involved. The other options are you can do a family meeting with the goal of getting him to do some type of treatment, some type of support group, or you can do an old school intervention. You guys know what I mean? Like, not the A&E intervention. That's ridiculous. Just, you sit down and here's the ultimatums and we help you with that. Or you can detach completely from the situation. That's the old school detachment. Detach with love. I'm just not going to react to anything. I'm not going to say anything. That kind of stuff. These are really the only options you have. We can help you figure out which one you want to do if you call our hotline. But there's nothing else in there other than that as it currently stands, as the world currently stands. Yes?
And I would just second the idea of being on the same page, because if you're not, the loved one will play one off against the other, and it won't be pretty.
No, it won't be pretty, and it'll turn into another issue that you have to deal with around the relationship, and it's also not going to be effective in any kind of way.
It's hard if you're trying to do something different, and let's say you are divorced and your former husband or wife is still enabling your son or daughter. That just creates, the child can never get well if someone is enabling them. It's so hard.
So it's like, but think about it in the same way you would with anything else that involves kids. If you're not communicating with one another, if you're not consistently talking about how we're going to handle this, the person is going to go talk to the other person, and so on and so forth, and so on and so forth. That's human nature, guys. That's just how we work. And what's interesting is that a lot of times parents, regardless of the age of the person, are just the first people that they check with. Okay? Now, if it's a teenager, that's a different story. You're there. It's really important at that point to be on the same page. But a lot of times, when a person is struggling, they'll go to mom, they'll go to dad. But if mom and dad say no, it's not like they're going to be destitute. They usually go to who's next on the list, believe it or not. Do you follow me? I heard a mom say this the other day. I thought it was one of the most empowering things that I've heard. It's highly unlikely that they want to come to your house because they want to sleep in the bed, they want to eat out of the fridge, okay? But it's also like highly unlikely that they're actually going to spend the night on the streets that night. There's couches that they're staying on. You guys got it? Like it's much more resourceful. And saying that they never wind up on the street. And obviously if it happens over and over again, they're more likely to wind up on the street. But don't go to like the worst case scenario. Truth is, you probably won't know right then that night what's going to go down. I want to say it one more time. I am not telling anyone to kick anyone out, okay? But I'm telling you to think it through. What kind of decisions do you make what kind of things do you take into consideration when you think about kicking somebody out? Violence and theft, for sure. Carolyn?
Yeah, I was gonna say violence.
Violence and theft hit the top of the list. Violence in any kind of way, including like verbal threats and all that other stuff. If it's destroying you, you have a right to set a boundary. Well, you have a right to set a boundary at any point, but if it's destroying you, how do you know whether it's destroying you? What do I mean by that part of it? Aside from the physical violence.
How you feel after?
I think a lot of it has to do with how you feel. What can you take and what can you not take? How long have you dealt with this? How long have you been getting this same conversation over and over again? How stressed out are you?
How many times have you said you're done?
How many times have you said you're done? How many sleepless nights have you spent? You know, how, and then that's where you start to like say, how do I put myself first and start working on this?
It can affect your health.
What's that?
It can affect your health.
It'll absolutely affect your health. Stress in general will. And remember, what's going down is, so this is the brain. This is your brain on regular pleasurable activities. That's what the yellow is. What do I mean? Eating food when you're hungry, drinking water when you're thirsty, interacting with people you love. It releases dopamine, and about that much of dopamine, okay? That is a positive thing. It feels good. It makes us feel normal. It's cool. We go back for more. We live a really good, calm life. That's fantastic. But when you use drugs of any kind, now these are facts. What I'm about to tell you are facts. There's nobody on the planet who can use drugs that doesn't release a boatload of dopamine. Do you understand that?
And it doesn't matter what the drug is.
Doesn't matter what the drug is. So your teenager can't tell you marijuana doesn't affect me that way. This is just a fact of life. Does everyone get that? It's like gravity. If I let go of this pen, it will drop, whether I want it to or not. If I smoke a joint or I smoke wait, what do they got? Like, if I smoke a dab pen, you know what I mean? You guys know what I mean? Oh, forget about it. It releases that much dopamine. It blows the brain up with dopamine. Alcohol blows the brain up with dopamine. Percocet blows the brain up with dopamine. Any mood or mind altering chemical blows the brain up with dopamine. And this is an inordinate amount of dopamine. Whereas this is the regular amount, this is too much. Follow me? That's too much, and it's not cool. The brain is a self-regulating organ. And so what will happen to some folks is, over time, it will shut off the production of dopamine, and that's what's going on here. So this is a depletion of dopamine. That's what addiction is, guys. That's what happens. That's the difference between heavy partying. That's the difference between just having a good time. The factors associated with that are age of first use. The biggest predictor is age of first use.
Is that why it actually increase as you go a lot of times with whatever it is you're
Yes,
doing?
you're literally trying to pour it into an empty bucket.
You're chasing it.
You're chasing it because you're trying to feel normal. You're trying to feel okay. You're pouring it into an empty bucket. Pouring it into an empty bucket. You're doing all. This is way down the road for a lot of people. This doesn't happen. Some of the substances get you there quicker than others, right? Now, age of first use, most important, hands down. Around 14 is what you find out. People in recovery will report they started using when they were around 14. Second thing is genetics. There is a strong genetic component to this, 40 to 60% more likely. Strongest is father to son, 60% increase. So my dad had this issue, I have this issue. And then the substance, the particular substance that's involved, has a lot to do with it. And co-occurring disorders, trauma. If you have underlying trauma or underlying depression or anxiety, you're more likely. what's that all about? That's all about the payoff, right? If I'm depressed and I use cocaine, I get a payoff that's different than if I don't. And those things all add up to increasing the likelihood of developing this problem. That is a neurobiological change, guys. It doesn't happen to every single person who uses drugs, but if you wind up in that area where you think you're addicted, that's what's going on. But it started way before that. If I could have anything, I'm going to talk a little bit about my story as I go through this, but if I could have anything, it would be to be 14 years old and be able to talk to me today.
Do you think you would listen?
Well, I think I'm probably one of the coolest dudes I know. So what I think is that I might listen.
Because we sent her through a program, through the local law enforcement there, and they literally talked to her about what every single drug does, what it does to your brain, what it does to you.
So Carolyn, one of the things that's going on is that your individual experience with her isn't necessarily indicative of what would happen with everyone. You follow what I'm saying? That's the first thing. The second thing is I wouldn't do it with a law enforcement person, but law enforcement is all you have available. Because a lot of kids don't want to talk to anybody, so you guys follow that? Like, she doesn't have you don't really have any real options when you find out what your daughter's up to.
Yeah. This was a cop and a counselor that sat in the room and beat her up for people.
And how do you know it didn't work?
She's still used.
Look where she is now.
Well, yeah.
How can you say it didn't work? I waited till I was 30, 29. She's in a program when she's 19. That shit worked. Excuse my language.
Started using at 15.
But you guys get that? That worked.
And she said that part of her justification, if you will, she knew exactly what each drug would do. And that's why
What do
she
you
wanted
mean?
to try them all.
Look, I'm going to make an argument that it worked. I don't care if she comes out saying
Oh, hey, we're
I mean,
thrilled.
if she's in
90
a-
days clean, life is good.
I would have wanted to know
Yeah.
that, because understand that the rest of us, most of us, don't even talk to anybody at any point in time until we have to. I don't know if you guys know that or not, but like, that's where the whole rock bottom thing kind of gets us. No, nothing, no conversation. It's different today, it's a little bit different. I would have wanted to know about the age of first use. I would have wanted somebody to say, dude, if you wait until you're 21, hell, if you even wait till you're 18, you're going to be able to drink for the rest of your life, and you'll be able to. This is what they should have said to me. You'll be able to have some beers at the Pittsburgh Steelers tailgate. Do you follow what I'm saying? Like, not like never do it again, or never do it. That's not what would have worked with me. We'll go there and then we'll go back there. Yes.
So can you go through in terms of the brain, because I've heard drug use particularly attacks the executive part of your brain, the decision-making part of the brain, and that's where the age of use is really critical, because if it hits at 14, a teenage brain is still developing, so it's more susceptible to issues. Do I have that right? Or
Well, it's still developing, and that is why it's more susceptible to issues. And it's not that the executive functioning gets damaged; it gets taken offline. It literally, like, what happens is your brain. It kind of like there are priority areas in your brain. So think about the base of your brain, which is responsible for heartbeat and breathing. That will always get the priority. The second area would be all your instinctual stuff, where this is housed. Eating when you're hungry, food, reproduction, you follow me? So it just literally overrides executive functioning. So the good news is it's not actually damaged. In other words, you can come back online. And actually that's what this slide shows. This is a person 10 days without any substances. This is 100 days. So you come back online where you can start to make some good decisions. Yes, ma'am?
I think, that the age of first use, that's killing me, because my son is 15 and he's like determined to do it. I tell him all the stuff I'm learning and he's just down and determined to do it. And I thought he might stop or train or something.
Yeah, I can relate to that. So the thing is that we're probably not saying that the best way. That doesn't mean like if a person's used already, they're doomed at that age. Not at all. It really should be more along the lines of age of first regular use or age of first ongoing use. Do you follow me? It's not as if you use for a period of time and then boom, you've crossed that line. It doesn't look, and it typically takes a longer time. You understand that? So you saying what you're saying is probably having more of an impact than you know. How many people in here have ever talked to a teenager and you're just 100% sure they're not listening to you? I mean, I used to do it for a living. And so a couple things about that. If you're doing it in a way where you're just kind of giving information, they're probably actually taking in more than you know. I spoke at Presbyterian College last week. I spoke maybe 600 students, and it was one of the worst experiences. They don't say anything or do anything or look at me or say anything or laugh at anything. They're just stoic, man. And why is that? Why do you think that is?
Afraid somebody's gonna judge them.
Could be they're listening. They're afraid someone's going to judge them. Why? Because if I interact with this dude or I ask a question, it means I have a problem. You follow me? He's the drug guy. And if I say anything. So, you know, you don't even know whether it's registering or not. But I can tell you after there, I've gotten about 13 or 14 emails from kids. So it's the reaction isn't lining up with the behavior. Although the faculty there said you definitely had their attention because they didn't pull their phones out, which apparently is a bar to get over. You know what I mean? Like if they're Carol.
Can you talk just a little bit about the kid who at 15 starts using pot and uses it a couple times in the building and throws up and it's good, but they don't continue? What is it? What makes that happen?
Say it again.
Why do some kids use pot and
And
then he lights up and then they need to continue to feel the same, and other kids don't?
Well, it's all the risk factors I just said. Age of first use,
Now,
genetics,
this is their first use, and they're not.
genetics, and also co-occurring issues, and certain diseases don't affect other people. Like, why do two people smoke cigarettes? One person winds up with lung disease and one person doesn't.
And people have different drugs of choice or whatever. Some like alcohol more than they don't like the feeling of pot or whatever. So they may like something that, jacks them up instead of puts them down, something like that.
Could have something to do with that, for sure. But really the most honest thing is that not everybody who eats terrible winds up with diabetes either. Right? Mm-hmm. And it's kind of like, why did I go this way and why did this person go that way when we did the same exact things? That's the first question I'm getting answered when I go to heaven. Because there's a couple things you need to know. I am going to heaven. And the second thing is God answers questions because he knows everything, right?
I think you just get there and,
And you just know it? Okay, because one of the things I want to know is why me and why not my brothers, right? What's the deal there?
Yeah.
How did that go down like that? What's up with that?
That's a good question.
Yes.
This is something that I don't know. We have an older child that's struggling with a lot of different things. On the level of drugs, does it start at alcohol, go to marijuana, go to pills?
So it used to be
serious level.
It used to be a progression that was relatively predictable. Now it's kind of starting off anywhere. But it used to be, if you looked at the typical kind of like layout, maybe when I was younger, it was underage drinking, okay? And then people would, remember, marijuana was still a drug then, okay? So it was, you were a bad kid if you were smoking weed. So that was kind of like the taboo thing that, pills, cocaine, other stuff didn't really enter the picture maybe until you go to college. And then the progression would kind of like go from there. And in my case, wound up with opioids. I wound up being addicted to prescription pain pills. I was in a car accident. So yeah, absolutely. The other thing is understand you can progress even if it's only one substance. You guys get that? Progression doesn't mean that you move from one substance to the other. Take alcohol, for example. There are some folks that only do alcohol and wind up being addicted to it. It's unpredictable, guys. It's unpredictable how this is going to go down. It's no one size fits all kind of explanation.
If I understand correctly, marijuana now is not like marijuana that I had in the 70s. There's
No.
many different levels and many different highs, and you can see in the states, I guess it's been legalized in, they're marketing it, all these different kinds, where it used to just be pot. So that might answer your question a little bit, because there's certain, I think there's more levels of different highs, and I think my son has told me one time that wherever he gets stuff, people will add things into it, because they want you're coming back there. And he's
Well-
gotten involved in fentanyl that way.
It's definitely not marijuana from the 70s. Absolutely not. But at the same time, we have to really get in touch with guys with a couple facts. One is, you can't predict exactly who that's going to happen to. If you have two kids, like age of first use is the same, parents are the same, that kind of thing, you can't, there's a randomness to this, to a certain degree.
Our son is a twin,
Yeah,
and it's like night and day.
yep. So we have to acknowledge that, and that's the case with cancer, that's the case with asthma, that's the case with, a lot of other chronic diseases. It's not fair, it doesn't make sense, but that is how it is, right? And then the second part of it is that no matter who the person is, or what the situation is, or what the substance is, the earlier they talk about it or learn about it, the better they do. These are all just like facts. The more often they talk about it or learn about it, the better they do, regardless of who they're talking to, regardless of where they're learning about it. Now, when it escalates, many, many times they have to go somewhere. They have to go to rehab, they have to go to detox, they have to get, literally, it's a terrible term, but they call it behaviorally contained, which to me sounds like jail. Behavioral containment means we're taking you out of the world and you're not going to have a chance to use it. You follow me? But even if you're not doing that, you can work on this and you can be doing things. And you can be getting involved, and family members can promote that through boundaries and through, I'm not going to deal with this and we're not letting you back in. I'm going to talk a little bit about my story and how long it took for my family to kind of get there. Any other thoughts? All right. So I'm going to give you a little bit about positive psychology today too. I'm going to talk about, this is for you, different takeaways on how to deal with stress, how to increase happiness, all that kind of stuff, okay? I want to talk real quick though, because we're kind of going through this, and we're talking about boundaries, and we're talking about what to do and what not to do and stuff like that. So my deal is, I take my first drink when I'm like 14, but I didn't jump into it right away. Not by any means did I jump into this stuff right away. I was still very interested in sports. I'm a very good athlete. Still doing all the things that I need to do. And really drinking or using drugs was an afterthought. It really wasn't there, but I would occasionally do it. And then as I got older, probably in high school, what did it turn into? Weekend type stuff, right? Still kind of like watching myself though, playing a lot of sports, that kind of thing. And then probably when I go off to college is when it really goes off the rails, but nobody's saying a word. And my mom is, I don't even like the word enable. I think that word is way overblown and way overused. My mom was doing what moms do, overcompensating, okay? She had a maladaptive response to my behavior. How do you like that? Mom, that's a maladaptive response to my behavior. And what do I mean by that? Probably giving me money when I shouldn't have money. Probably bailing me out of situations financially. Grades, tank. She rescues me, gets me into, like, literally, like, sets me up with an interview with a baseball coach so I can get a scholarship to go play baseball at St. Vincent. You follow what I'm saying? Like, all this stuff is going down. She's just doing what a mom does. And nobody knows nobody has ever talked about substance use. You follow me? Like, it's never come up. The only thing people would say to me is, you need help. You need help. And it would be usually in the middle of a fight. No conversation ever occurred. That's why I'm saying, like, it's so important for people to start hearing about it. Even if you think that they're not listening, even if you think they're not reacting, because I needed somebody to start saying something to me in that period of time. So I go on and I'm doing my thing, and I get married. This is a picture of me and my wife, okay? And my wife is my childhood sweetheart. We've been together for 30 years. We've been married for 26. And so one time I said to my wife, I felt like this was the best compliment anybody could ever give anyone else. I said, Melissa, we've been married for 26 years, and we dated for 4 before we got married. That's 30 years, and I'm still not sick of you. Now, she said the same thing. That is incredible length of time to be in a voluntary relationship with somebody, and still, you know what I mean? So this is a long time. But when I'm in the middle of this, and I'm in the middle of my brain looking like this, okay, I'm what? Looking her in the eye and lying to her straight up every day. Not coming in when I said I wasn't going to come in. not showing up when I said I was gonna show up, driving my kids under the influence. Do you follow me? And it's not because I was a bad person. You can think whatever you want. I'm gonna show you what I think is documentation that I wasn't a bad person. It's not that I was weak-willed or I lacked discipline. It was because this had happened to my brain. And I never had a chance to hear about this until I finally got into recovery. The first time I ever really heard about this was, I even tried to quit, guys. There were times I tried to quit. I didn't know what was going on with me. I wasn't a therapist at that time. And so I do what I do. I hurt my wife, and it's a series of like crises. And what happens is like you can't stay here. You gotta go to your mom's house. So I go, and my mom's picture's not up here. That's not good. It used to be there. Did I freaking cut my mom from the presentation? That's horrible. I'm sorry. I'll take care of that. Mom's in the room. I don't know how that happened.
Feeling the glare?
So what I would do is I would go to my mom and she would validate my behavior. You follow me? It wasn't about money. This is very important to understand. It was not about money. I was the breadwinner. I was making a boatload of money then. More money than I probably even do now. It was about what? Emotional connection. Her telling me I was okay, that it was my wife overreacting. And it wasn't until my wife and my mom got on the same page that I stood a chance at getting this. They started to get educated. And so one point in time I leave, and when I get there, my mom meets me on the deck and says, "Not tonight, I did my time." Like as if being with me was being in jail. And now that isn't the day that I got recovery, but can you see how that's when everything started to change? I have no idea how much time it took for her to get there in terms of when she started to get educated. I do know that they started to go to Al-Anon. And they formed a bond and they went to Al-Anon. I like to refer to that as the unholy alliance. Because everything was getting talked about then. And they were learning, kind of like what you guys are by sitting here tonight, what this stuff is and what your options are. I don't know how, and I truly do not know how long it took, kind of like from introduction to my mom doing that. I'm going to tell you right now, though, even though I didn't get it that day, it was the game changer. Because what had it done? It totally flipped the script. The whole script was different now. I could no longer run to her for that validation. I could no longer run to her for those pats on the back. And that was so important to me. It was the only thing that was getting me by in those situations. Now, as far as positive psychology goes, it's interesting. Even in recovery, probably about 3 years into recovery, I was just a really grumpy guy. I know that's very hard to imagine. But I was grumpy and I wasn't feeling life. And the stuff that I had done during the first 3 years of my recovery, it just wasn't working. And so that's where positive psychology enters the picture. And you can make an argument that positive psychology saved my marriage a second time because she wasn't going to continue to put up with that. She did put up with it. We got back together, and we have 7 kids now. That's what everyone says. We have 3 adult children, 26, my son Nathan, 26, Elizabeth, Megan. So it's 26, 23, and 20. Isaac is 12, Andrew is 10, Ellie is 8, that's Ellie, and then Aiden is 6. And so, now I'm not saying you get recovery so you can have 7 kids. That's not the point. The point is that you can work through things, and that you have to work through things around managing stress, and you have to work through things in terms of how you want to do your life, because if you don't, it'll get the best of you, with or without substances. And it's my way of trying to sell this program to you. It's my way of trying to convince you to give some of these exercises a try. Because I know that for a lot of you, that's not what you're here for. You want me to tell you exactly what you can do and what you can say to your loved one. You want me to say, if you do this, this is what will happen. Or I have this like kind of secret formula. Guys, that isn't there. It isn't there. This is a long-term proposition, and you got to work on this, over and over and over again, especially if they're younger, that kind of thing. And you do everything you can around setting the boundaries, but at a certain point, you're like, I can't do anything more with that. How do I not lose my mind? You guys get this? So that's the context where I want to talk about positive psychology. Okay? Giving this to you before. Here's the formula for happiness. 50% is what you're born with. It is true. There is a set point. Certain nationalities are happier than others. The Scottish are the grumpiest people on the planet. That's a fact. The happiest country a couple years ago, I don't know what it is now, a couple years ago was Costa Rica. Okay? That's because of relationships and the families tend to stay together. So this you can't do anything about. Circumstances you can't do a lot about. You're living through a situation right now that sucks, right? But 40% of it is in your control. You get that? It's things that you can do on any given day to improve your mood. And 40% takes you from a 4 on the scale 1 to 10 to an 8. Okay? It's a big deal. Improving anything, 40%. They sell Prozac based on like a 0.04% improvement. This is a miracle drug. Okay? So the first thing is, we've done this before, stop comparing yourself. Immediately, stop comparing. Parenting is not a competitive sport. The value for me as a person is not what my kids achieve. Do you guys get that? Mm-hmm. Like if my son goes to Harvard, I'm not more of a success because my son went to Harvard. If my daughter winds up in jail, I'm not a worse person because my daughter wound up in jail. I know that it's good to be proud of our kids, but I'm telling you, man, at some point in time, probably early 2000s, this country flipped hard, man, to like parents' values are literally the outcomes for your kids. And that is a terrible model to work within. Allow your kids the dignity to be their own people. And their success is their success. Their failure is their failure. And so, and the reason I'm saying this is where substance use is concerned, you'll get all up in your head about, you're worried about what's going down, but you're also worried about what people are thinking. And then you go on Facebook and you see all these pictures of all these beautiful families, and they're all like jet setting around and stuff. It's all fake. It's all fake. This is what it actually is. That's what's actually going on. So that's actually what's happening. So try to have a perspective on what you're seeing other places. Try to have a perspective on the Joneses, so to speak. I can't think of another way to say it. You guys get that? Anybody have any comments on this part of the problem? We've talked about this here before. You got enough on your plate. You don't need to be comparing yourself in terms of parenting. This is very interesting. Have a perspective on time. So take away one, perspective on comparison. Have a perspective on time. When you're going through a horrible time, in terms of your whole entire life, it's not as big as you think. Even if you're going through a horrible year. Even if you're going through a horrible 5 years. Because this is your life laid out in weeks if you live to your 90. Okay? So the exercise here is, if you're 50 years old and we're in March, we'll be in March, like right there is the week. You can't even see it. That's 1 week. If I have a terrible week, the exercise is step back and get perspective on that terrible week. It's all about trying to avoid the halo effect. Any given moment or event, good or bad, but it tends to lean toward bad. Any given moment or event characterizes the whole experience. You get that? It's not about literally what happened today. You know, what happened today happened. You make it about the whole entire story. And that's dangerous in terms of stress. Do you guys get that? That's really good. And so if you can try to maintain a perspective. Now this is laid out where they did. This is what the career is. This is what school is. Remember, you're also conditioned to notice bad things over positive things. Noticing bad things is a good thing in terms of evolution. It keeps us alive. It keeps us, like it was good to be anxious back in the day. You didn't get eaten by a woolly mammoth or anything. I always joke about that. This freaking phone. I'm sorry about that. I need to hire a new technology department. I can't stand that thing. All right. This is, you don't have to use this exercise to get this done, okay? But the takeaway is, can you maintain a perspective on time? And that's good or bad, right? Because you can get too high, too. One of the things that I've seen happen is, maybe if a person goes to rehab or they go and they start to get better, I've seen family members get too high. You know, it's better to try to like ride this out a little bit. Let's see where we're going. Perspective on time. But it's weird how much we notice. So if you look at the year 2018, I would have been 49, okay? And if somebody were to say to me, tell me about 2018, how was it? I would say it was the worst year of my life. Because it was what happened with Aiden. You guys know I've shared it here before where I thought he was going to die. And, you know, my daughter went through some stuff. Worst year of my life. But really, guys, it was like, it wasn't even a whole week. Do you follow me? It was 4 days. 4 days out of 365. But if you talk to me and you say, tell me about 2018, probably till the day I die, I'll say what? Worst year of my life. Isn't that amazing? And so the idea would be maintain a perspective on your life. Step back, and even if you're going through the most horrible thing now, I'm not trying to minimize it by any means, but also get in touch with the idea there'll be other things coming down the road. And there also have been good things in the past. Any questions about that? Does that one make sense at all? Okay. Another issue right off the bat. We've done this exercise before, but it's incredibly important. Incredibly important. Who do you have in your life that you like being around? Who do you have in your life that you don't like being around? And who can you eliminate from that second category? You get that? Because there's going to be certain people you can't eliminate. Here's the exercise. There are two different people in the world. One person walks in the room and everybody's happy. One person walks out of the room and everybody's happy. You want to have more of the first person, less of the second. But you're going to have some people in your life that you can't get rid of. Who would that be? Family, coworkers, you get it? But toxic relationships are very, very difficult to bear when you're dealing with stressful health-related issues. All the little annoyances get what? Much more annoying. All the comments and all the things get much more problematic. And you are allowed to take a break from toxic people.
I would say at least while your child or whoever is in the middle of the chaos.
Say that again?
When your child or whoever is in the middle of that chaos, you gotta get rid of those.
You don't need anything that's going to add to your negativity.
Because that was always like the straw that broke the camel's
Yeah.
back for me, and I just know
Yep.
that.
Yes, sir.
I think it's important that you explain to the group what a toxic person is.
So a toxic person would be, well, first of all, it would be a person who sits in judgment. And you know these people because as you tell them what's going on with your kid, they say things like, well, if that was my kid, I would.
Or they say nothing,
Or they-
which is sometimes worse.
Or they say nothing and they tell each other what they would do. And what's really bad about that is they would not do it. Okay? If it was their kid, they wouldn't kick him out because they'd have a reason. They'd be like, well, he's left-handed, man. You understand, like their kid's right-handed. They should have done something. So, and what's that all about? You have enough legitimate stress going on in your life if you're worried about this issue, right? You have enough like real deal things. You do not need anybody laying on there. And even if it's a family member, look, just get strategic on how you're not going to deal with it. I always say get a dog and take the dog out for a walk every time, you know, your Aunt Susie calls to give you a speech about how, you know, Julie needs to do better. You don't need toxic people in your life right now. So you could start with those 3 exercises and you're going to feel better. But I even have more for you today. This sounds like an infomercial. I don't know if we've talked about this before. These are the 5 areas that if you do these, if you assess this and you're able to say like, I don't have anything going on in this area, and you start to address it, you'll start to feel better. Pleasure, what do you do for fun? Engagement, what do you do that 100% captures your attention? Again, I know this is very, very hard because a lot of you are here, this is not what you're here for. You're here to figure out how to save your loved one. We talked about that. We will continue to talk about that. We will revisit that a little bit more next week. I swear I've given you all the tangible stuff we have. We have cards up here that you can call and you can get into the details of what you're dealing with. So the E is what are you into that's 100% capturing your attention. R is relationships. We just talked about that. M is meaning. Like what do you, like, what is your purpose in life? What is the meaning of suffering? How do you wrap your mind around all these things? Is it your faith system? Is it your belief in God? Is it just your belief in humanity, whatever that may be? And A is our attitude. You know, we choose how we respond to situations, okay? And how do you identify what needs to change? You just do a little exercise. You can journal on this. Pretend you wake up tomorrow morning and your life is perfect. Everything is just as you always wanted it to be. Describe that life in terms of what do you do for fun? Where are you fully engaged and in the zone? Tell me about your relationships, tell me about meaning, and tell me about your attitude. You follow that? Or you don't even have to do that. You could just do the first part of it. Here's what's interesting. When I talk to people in my private practice, this is much more on the mental health side than it is on the drug and alcohol side. Because on the drug and alcohol side, most people come to us because what? They want to talk about their substance use, or they want to talk about how their mom needs to quit talking about their substance use. They're very clear what they want. They might not be real into it, but they're clear. You guys get that? It's usually, but when you talk about stress and depression and anxiety, many people don't even know how they want it to be. Do you follow? Like if you say this to them, they can't answer it. Or they're having family problems, and you say, what do you want it to be different? They can't even tell you what they want to be different. If you don't know where you're going, you can never have a map to get there. So you start to say, what would be my ideal life? Even though I might not ever get there, what would it look like? And then, I'm going to show you some stuff as we go through, but you get this part. Look at what I'm telling you right now. I charge people like $150 an hour for it. This is the stuff right here. If you start doing this, but you have to identify this, journal on it, you get it? And you make your list. This is my list. My kids are all healthy and actively engaged in their own thing. Do you know what that actually means? Get the hell out of my house.
You got away.
My wife and I are good to go. We're no longer living in 2 states. You guys know what went on with Aiden. He had to stay in Pittsburgh. They're coming back. I'm going on Wednesday to get them.
Good.
So it's all good. I've recovered financially from the Pennsylvania to South Carolina move. I got crushed in that whole thing, crushed in a major way that I haven't recovered from yet. We lived off my retirement for a period of time because we took about a 50% pay cut to come here. Because I just couldn't do the job I was in anymore. It was a grind, guys. I was making great money. You know what I mean? It just wasn't going to work. So that would be taken care of. The FAVOR flavor would be in every city in America. Now, that doesn't mean that this building or this person or this, me running it, well actually me running it, but me not there. It would be like this attitude and this outlook and this way of doing it in every city. My health would be better. I'm a terrible patient. I went to the doctor. I had like pre-hypertension, and I could tell he was going to tell me to come back. And before he was even finished, I'm like, I'm never coming back. I'm a terrible patient. I could do better there. Peak state of experiences. I got to do some fun stuff outside of work. I got to do something that engages me. You would do the same thing for you. Do you follow this? And then if you know that, first of all, any questions about your list? It doesn't have to be any certain number of things. It could be 3 or 4 things.
What happened to Aiden?
Aiden is good to go. Aiden has this condition that, like an immune system condition, that for whatever reason, when he gets any kind of little cold, it literally, like, his respiratory system shuts down. And he was hospitalized, and I mean, he was in like a drug-induced coma, and he was there for like 4 days. They couldn't say what was going on. He was out for 4 days, and they couldn't say what was going on with him. And it's taken this long. That was this summer. It's taken this long to get it to where, like, he was able to come back. You wanted to know what had to happen was he had to get a cold there and not have a bad reaction. Do you follow me? So,
Is that out in Pittsburgh?
yes. Well, we went to UPMC Children's Hospital. I know people there, yeah. And so your list could be whatever is going to work for you. What questions do you have about this list? Then you say, how do I get there? What would be one step toward having more fun each week? What would be one step toward finding something else that engages me? What would be one step toward financial reparations, or whatever we call it? Do you guys follow that?
3 good friends is what you need.
I need 3 good friends here in South Carolina. Yep, and I put that down because this was a real honest explanation of relationships. My best friends are still in Pennsylvania. So, or maybe you don't. This is literally just a framework. You guys get that? And then you start to work toward it. Now, I made a chart that you can use to fill it out. Or you can just write it in a journal. The most important part of this conversation is, do you get the general idea? The main thing that you would want that would make you feel better would be if your loved one was okay. But you have no control over that. Do you follow me? And the most stressful thing, this is a fact, guys, the most stressful events in our life are the events we have no control over. The way that it was explained to me, think about this for a minute. You could go to an employee and you could give them a list of 100 tasks. And if they know how to do each and every one of those tasks, it's not as stressful as one that they're not sure what to do with and they feel like they don't have control over. You're trying to, there's 2 things going on. This stuff will improve your life, but the second thing, you're also going to fool your brain into thinking you have control. You get that? Like, this is actually something you have control over. Instead of kind of like being at the mercy of this situation. And then you go through it. You don't have to do it like this, but this is just what I did. What questions do we have about that part of the model? Look at this kid with this donut. Like, that kid is happy. Donuts quit working though.
Yeah.
I mean, it worked for a moment. Believe me, I know. All right. So a couple other things. We've talked about this. You can put this into action immediately. The free 3. Go outside, laugh, and listen to music. If you do that on a consistent basis, it'll raise your mood, decrease your stress.
Does that really count for country music? I don't think so.
If it's upbeat enough, and it's songs not about like your dog left and your truck's on fire. What about this idea of flow, being engaged? What that means, guys, is whatever the activity is, while you're doing it, you're not even noticing time. You're just 100% immersed in the activity. And what happens is it releases chemicals in your brain that have a very positive effect. It's calming. It's literally a calming experience. And it can last even after the event. Finding this is one of the most difficult things for people to find. You know, sometimes you have to try different things. It could be a hobby. It could be going hiking. It could be exercise. Like wherever, all of us have a place where our brain clicks into another spot where we're so dialed in that we don't even have to think about it.
Tell me what those three things are again.
Music.
Okay.
Listen to music. Laugh.
Laugh.
Pull up a YouTube video and laugh. And go outside. If you can't get outside in nature, just go outside and walk around the building. This is extremely high-end payoff. I don't know if you guys heard a couple years ago where they were talking about there was a series of accidents for people that were doing wing gliding suits. Okay, and the reason what they found was that they were in the flow state. It was addictive. It was addictive. They shouldn't have been out there. They couldn't say no. This literally releases the same type of chemicals. And it has a payoff afterward. You just got to figure out what it is. You got to figure out what it is. When in doubt, go free climbing. Go rock climbing. When you're rock climbing, you're not thinking about anything else other than where you're going to put your hands. All right. So, a couple other things real quick. Let's see here. Do I have 3 good things up here?
What's the book?
Here, let me talk about this first. The other thing is you can build on positive emotions. Now remember when I just said that we notice the negative. We are wired to notice the negative, and that is absolutely true. The reason is we kind of need to be assessing for safety all the time. That's how we're wired. Am I okay? Am I okay? Am I safe? Am I safe? Oh, Mary Kay has a knife in the back of the room. She's gonna shank me. Do you follow me? Like you're supposed to be on your toes. Now, if you're not physically threatened, you will be psychologically threatened. And so it doesn't have to be a physical threat with Mary Kay having a knife. It could also be that she's whispering to her neighbor and talking about me. You see what I'm saying? Saying something bad. So I'm going to notice the negative. You got to make yourself notice the positive. And here's how you do that. Now there's a caveat to this I just learned. I was just up here. Okay, so you got to take some money, okay? Put it in an envelope and say, if I do this at 95% success rate, at the end of this month, I'll buy myself something with this money. Because you got to make it an assignment. You get that? The key to this is it has to be an assignment for you. And your assignment is that at the end of the day, at the same time every day, preferably like in the evening, write down 3 good things that happened to you that day. 3 very specific things. Not general stuff like, I'm grateful that I have a job, or I'm grateful that I'm healthy, or I'm grateful that my kids are okay. Very specific things. I'll tell you something that will make my list today. I can't believe my voice came back. I can't even freaking believe it. Like I was like this all afternoon. This is a good thing. You put it on the list, and what it'll do is it'll start to condition your mind to notice good stuff, because you don't naturally notice good things. You notice bad things. And then the final one would be, you can do the same thing with pictures. You can you can put pictures in your cell phone. We used to have to do this with these things called picture albums. Anybody know what that is? Mm-hmm. My mom still rolls that way. Mm-hmm. Have I told you all the marijuana story about my mom? Mm-hmm. I haven't? No. Oh, this is a good one. Okay, this is going to make the list so you can laugh. All right, so medical marijuana. Everybody's heard about it, right? All right, so medical marijuana is legal in Pennsylvania. It happened January 2019. And what they do when they put medical marijuana into any community is they saturate the community with advertisements about what? Pain, anxiety. This will solve all your problems. This will solve all your problems. So that's what's going on in Pennsylvania. And I'm not there. I don't really know it. It's all like local channels and stuff. And obviously my mom's watching this. So the problem is whenever you get medical marijuana introduced, it's never for like all those things. It's always a very narrow scope, like epilepsy or very severe issues with cancer. You can't just get it for pain. So my mom, I gotta turn this off.